She broke free from the ties of the past while I resigned myself to being its prisoner. Some partings aren't because love runs out, but because one person keeps swimming away from the current of the past while the other chooses to bury themselves within it. Emma flew away like a bird yearning for new skies while I stood still stubbornly clinging to memories that had turned to ash. Hey everyone, how are you doing today? Is work going smoothly? I hope that no matter how busy life gets, you still find moments of peace for yourselves. Today I want to tell you a story, a confession from the bottom of my heart. This isn't a story about betrayal or fiery arguments. This is a story about two people who loved each other but walked on two vastly different paths until our paths no longer intersected. I want to tell you this because who knows, somewhere out there are people standing at the threshold of change, of growth, and even of separation. Listen to my story. The story of Oliver and Emma, so you can reflect on your own relationships, so you can bravely face the truth before everything becomes irreparable fragments. It all started in a small town where our love blossomed and ended in a big city where her dreams soared high while I remained forever trapped in the past. Oliver and Emma. We fell in love back when we were high school sweethearts. The small town where we grew up was our entire world. Afternoons cycling down dirt roads, stopping at Joe's familiar pizza place with its delicious smell of cheese and baked dough. Summer nights sneaking out from our parents to watch horror movies at the old cinema filled with our friends' laughter. Every corner, every paving stone, every ancient tree in the park was etched with our footsteps and memories. That was my world, and I thought it would be Emma's world forever. I believed our love was strong enough to keep her here, to build a simple, peaceful future together in this familiar place. Emma, with her glossy brown hair and eyes always sparkling with curiosity and a desire to explore, was the girl of my dreams. She wasn't the loudest or most attention-grabbing, but she had a strange allure, a quiet determination. I loved her for her innocence, for the sometimes crazy ideas she often shared, and for how she always saw the beauty in our simple life. I was a good programmer. I could work anywhere, but I always assumed anywhere would be right here in this town, close to family, friends, and sweet memories. But Emma wasn't like that. She never stopped dreaming of broader horizons. While I was content with stability, Emma yearned for challenges, for discovery. She was always the first to mention art house films, philosophical books that I would just nod along to. I didn't realize that the seeds of our differences had begun to sprout long ago, even as we walked hand in hand down our familiar road. There were times Emma vaguely mentioned wanting to live in a big city where there were more opportunities for creative industries. I always brushed it off with a smile, thinking they were just fleeting youthful ideas. I was too confident in our love and too complacent about Emma's hidden desires. Right after graduating college, as I was planning a simple life in our small town, Emma told me one pale sunny afternoon as we sat on the old wooden bench in the park, "I want to move to Seattle, Oliver. I want to work in film." That sentence hit me like a bolt of lightning. Seattle film industry. That was too far removed from the world I was envisioning. I felt betrayed. Betrayed by her dream, betrayed by the future I had assumed we'd build together here. This was our world, wasn't it? Our families, our friends, the shared memories we had diligently nurtured for so many years. "We have everything here, Emma," I tried to say, my voice choked with anger and disappointment. "Why do you want to leave?" The way Emma looked at me. Then I'll never forget it. It wasn't coldness, but a quiet determination mixed with a hint of pain. She understood how I felt, but her dream was too big to be confined. That was the first secret revealed. There was already a major difference between us in our outlook on life and future direction. A difference I had deliberately ignored, believing that love would conquer all. I thought love could overcome anything, but I was wrong. Love can be a driving force, but it cannot change a person's core nature, nor can it erase the burning desires deep within one's soul. I struggled immensely internally. Leaving this town was unthinkable for me. I feared the unfamiliar, feared facing new things. My entire life was tied to this place, to these people. A sense of unease consumed me. But seeing Emma's resolute gaze, seeing the burning desire in her, I knew I couldn't hold her back. I loved Emma. I wanted her to be happy. And if Seattle, if the film industry was where she found happiness, then I would have to accept it. I still agreed to move. A reluctant decision, full of a reluctance I tried to conceal. I thought as long as I was with Emma, everything would be fine. I didn't know that this was just the beginning of a journey where only she would soar, while I would forever be stuck in the shadow of the past. The feeling of unease and anxiety, like an invisible ghost, followed me to the new city and grew steadily over time. Seattle welcomed us with drizzling rain and a bustling pace of life. Emma took to it like a fish to water. She quickly adapted to the new environment. With her dynamism and enthusiasm, she quickly found a job in content production for a large film-focused YouTube channel. The job required her to interact a lot, meet new people, attend networking events, and always stay updated on the latest trends. I saw Emma radiant every day. She talked about new projects, interesting colleagues, about starting yoga, trying vegetarianism, and joining outdoor sports clubs. Her world expanded daily, full of color and vitality. I did not. I still worked remotely for my old company in our small town. My schedule didn't change. My work still revolved around familiar lines of code and algorithms. My life in Seattle was not much different from my life in the old town. I still drank beer on Friday nights, still watched soccer on weekends. My friends were still the familiar faces from high school whom I could only talk to on the phone. I couldn't integrate into Seattle's rhythm, couldn't find joy in the new things Emma was passionate about. I tried going to the coffee shops Emma recommended, but I sought out quiet bars where I could sit alone without having to try to blend in. We started to become different more clearly than ever. She liked vibrant networking evenings. I liked staying home in familiar quiet. She liked hiking and exploring majestic mountains. I wanted to find some old restaurant to evoke the taste of home. Her life was a journey forward full of discovery. My life was a clinging full of nostalgia. I saw her talking to her new friends. They shared passions for film, for art, for grand ideas that I couldn't possibly grasp. I sat there nodding, trying to appear interested, but in reality I felt lost. Lost even in my own home. Lost right next to the woman I loved. That was the third secret, my loneliness and feeling of being lost in a strange city while my partner integrated so quickly made me feel like an odd piece in the puzzle of her life. I felt like I was being left behind, forgotten in her new world. I had always believed that love was strong enough to keep us together, but now that belief was slowly crumbling. I kept thinking, as long as she's happy, I'll stay. I convinced myself that my love was big enough to overcome all differences. I was willing to sacrifice my personal interests, willing to accept a life I didn't truly love, just for Emma to be happy. I thought it was love, a noble sacrifice. But I didn't realize that this one-sided sacrifice was slowly killing me and killing our relationship too. I became quieter, less sharing, and slowly lost my smile. Every time Emma came home with sparkling eyes talking about an exciting day at work, I felt an invisible envy. Envy of her passion, envy of her growth, and envy of the new friends who could share those things with her. I wasn't brave enough to express my true feelings, not strong enough to admit that I was slowly being left behind. I kept those thoughts to myself, and the invisible wall between us grew taller, thicker. I tried to withdraw, avoiding deep conversations, afraid that if I spoke the truth would be too harsh. Our relationship was like a silent play where we both tried to act happy, but deep down, everything was slowly falling apart. We still talked, still cooked dinner together every night, still watched Netflix before bed. Our public life still looked normal, like any other couple. Friends would occasionally visit, still marveling at our life in Seattle. But between us, something started to be missing, a gap that grew larger over time, shared plans, shared goals, shared aspirations. Emma talked a lot about films, about new script ideas, about projects, going to independent film festivals, about wanting to open her own production company. Her eyes lit up every time she mentioned those things. I sat there listening, nodding, but I didn't truly understand. I couldn't visualize her passions, couldn't feel the excitement she was experiencing. I still only cared about the technical issues of programming, about weekend soccer matches, about safe, familiar things. And she also knew that I didn't understand. I could see it in her eyes whenever I only responded with a nod or a vague answer. Her enthusiasm slowly died down each time she realized I couldn't share it with her. We started talking less about our dreams, replaced by conversations about housework bills, about trivial things in life. That unspoken distance was the fourth secret. We had lost our invisible connection, lost the ability to share our deepest dreams and aspirations, making each of us slowly become a lonely island. I tried. I really tried. I tried watching the movies Emma recommended, reading the books she liked. I even tried asking her about her work, about the films she was producing. But each time I felt lost, without enough knowledge or genuine interest to keep up. My efforts felt forced, and Emma noticed it too. She didn't say anything, but I sensed her disappointment, her helplessness at not being able to draw me into her world. I tried learning to play the guitar, something Emma once loved, but I couldn't find joy in it. Every time I tried, I felt like I was faking it, trying to be someone I wasn't just to please her. Our lives slowly became two parallel lines. We still walked together, still lived under the same roof, but each of us was heading towards a different horizon. She swam out to the open sea, seeking vast oceans to satisfy her desire for exploration. As for me, I remained buried in the small canals, the familiar rivers of the old town, not daring to step out of my comfort zone. I had deluded myself into thinking that as long as I was by her side, everything would be fine. but I didn't realize that being next to someone without being able to share the most important things with them was the greatest loneliness of all. I started to feel tired of pretending to understand, tired of pretending to be happy. I knew Emma felt the same way. Her smiles became increasingly forced, her hugs increasingly distant. We were still partners on paper, but in reality we had become strangers, people just living under the same roof. Our conversations were reduced to polite inquiries. "Are you okay today? Do you want anything to eat?" There were no more heart-to-heart talks, no more dreams shared, no more plans for a shared future. We had lost each other from within, little by little, in the silence of a love that was no longer in sync. The silence grew heavier. We no longer had deep conversations. Instead, there were quiet dinners, the clinking of cutlery against plates clearly audible. I felt suffocated in my own apartment. The suffocation wasn't from a cramped space, but from the emotional space between us. I wished I could turn back time, return to the small town where we were carefree, high schoolers unaware of distant dreams or the burdens of our differences. I remembered those days when just having each other was enough, when our dreams were small and aligned. During one suffocatingly quiet dinner, Emma put her plate down on the table and looked directly at me. Her eyes no longer held disappointment or sadness, but a terrifying stillness and acceptance I had become too familiar with. Her voice was soft like a whisper, but it made my heart clench. "If I moved back to our small town, lived a harmonious life, cooked dinner every night and had children, would you be happy?" That question, like a knife, thrust straight into my heart. It wasn't a question seeking an answer. It was a confession, a validation of what we both already knew but neither dared to say. I couldn't answer. My throat choked up, all words seemed to vanish. I wanted to say, yes, I would be so happy, I would be overjoyed, to make her stay, to hold on to that fragile hope. I wanted to say that I was willing to give up everything, my job, Seattle, even what I was desperately clinging to, just to have her come back. But I couldn't. I knew it was a blatant lie, because I knew that would never happen. Because Emma was becoming the person she wanted to be, an ambitious woman full of a burning desire to dedicate herself to her passion. She had swum too far, grown up too fast, and left me behind with old memories and a fear of change. That was the fifth secret Emma knew. I was no longer the person who could accompany her on the road ahead, and she was giving me one last chance to admit that truth, even if unspoken. She was offering me a way out, a chance to let go, so neither of us had to torment each other any longer. Emma's eyes looking at me, then they contained all the things she hadn't said. Understanding, regret, and even a touch of pain at having to accept a harsh truth. She tried, I knew it. She tried to pull me into her world, tried to find a connection, but I was too immersed in the past, too afraid of change. I refused to grow up with her, refused to face new challenges. My silence was the answer. An answer filled with helplessness and regret. I wasn't brave enough to say the truth that I was no longer the man who could make her happy in the way she desired. I wasn't brave enough to admit that I was too weak to step out of my comfort zone. That night I realized that love isn't everything. Love needs synchronicity, needs parallel development. If one person keeps swimming out to the open sea while the other stubbornly stays on shore, sooner or later, they will lose each other. That was the shattering realization of a harsh truth. A truth I had tried to deny for so long. And I knew Emma understood too. The silent tear rolling down her cheek wasn't weakness, it was final acceptance. Acceptance that we no longer belong together. Acceptance that some loves, no matter how deep, cannot overcome differences in life direction. That unspoken conversation ended everything. After that fateful night with the unspoken question, everything unfolded with surprising gentleness. There were no loud arguments, no emotional turmoil or clinging. It was as if we were both too tired, too exhausted to continue carrying the burden of a relationship that had been fractured for a long time. The truth had been revealed, and now all that remained was acceptance and liberation. We sat together not on the familiar sofa where we once shared romantic moments, but in a lawyer's office with divorce papers on the table. Both of us seemed strangely calm. I looked at Emma. She was thinner than before, but her eyes held a strange determination and peace. I knew this was the right decision for her and for me too. We discussed everything with the lawyer clearly and concisely. Everything was resolved quickly, like a simple administrative procedure. Not a single word of blame was uttered, not a single accusation. It was as if we both understood that no one was entirely at fault here, or that both of us were at fault for not bravely facing the truth from the very beginning. We were just two young people who had traveled a road together, but then each person's path diverged in two different directions. Emma said goodbye to me on a Seattle autumn afternoon, the rain still drizzling. She left the apartment keys on the kitchen counter quietly. A few days later, she moved out her remaining personal belongings. I stood watching her suitcase in hand, her figure graceful and confident as she walked out that door. She didn't look back. Perhaps she was afraid she wouldn't be strong enough, or perhaps she knew there was nothing left to look back at. She was gone, carrying her passion and ambition and finding herself again in a broader world. She had swum away from the past, reaching for the new horizons she had always yearned for. And I remained in the old apartment with the guitar lying silently in the corner that I hadn't touched in a long time. I was still a person of the past, stubbornly clinging to memories that had turned to ash. That was the sixth secret. This divorce wasn't because love had ended, but because we were no longer capable of being in sync, unable to move forward together on a path where both of us yearned for happiness but defined happiness in two different ways. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because I knew tears wouldn't change anything. I only felt an endless emptiness, a loss I couldn't name. I had lost Emma. But deeper still, I had lost myself in that relationship, in trying to hold on to something that didn't belong to me. I sacrificed too much, but I sacrificed blindly, incorrectly, and in the end, neither Emma nor I were happy. This parting, though heartbreaking, was a necessary liberation. It was like a whirlwind sweeping away all falsehoods, leaving behind a void where I could begin to rebuild from scratch. After the divorce, I returned to the old apartment, the place that had witnessed our free love and then the suffocation of our marriage. The room seemed larger, emptier. No more Emma's laughter, no more her dynamism and enthusiasm, only a terrifying silence. I had regained my freedom, the freedom I had so desperately longed for, but now it carried a bitter taste, a loneliness I had never experienced. I wondered, was this what I truly wanted? Or was I just running from one prison to another? A prison of loneliness and regret. I started burying myself in work more than ever, but not to escape as before, but to fill the emptiness within. I threw myself into new projects, complex lines of code, trying to find meaning in life again. But no matter how busy I was, every time night fell, the emptiness returned. I sat alone in the apartment, looking out the window, the glittering lights of Seattle shining like distant lonely stars. I remembered the days in the small town, remembered the familiar pizza place, the old cinema, the afternoon cycling with Emma. Those memories kept coming back, tormenting me every night. It wasn't an intense longing for Emma, but a longing for a past version of myself. A carefree version who didn't have to face difficult choices or heartbreaking failures. I realized I had been cowardly. Cowardly for not daring to face Emma's changes. Cowardly for not daring to voice my own fears. Cowardly for stubbornly clinging to the past and refusing to move forward. I had clung too tightly to my comfort zone, to what was familiar, to the point of losing the opportunity to grow up with the person I loved. That is a deep regret, a big scar on my soul. I hadn't realized that love also needs development, needs synchronicity in spirit, not just physical presence. I had locked myself in a cocoon of fear and left Emma to swim out of it alone. I started seeking help. I sought out a therapist, someone who helped me re-examine my entire relationship from the early days of our love to our separation. She didn't judge, just listened and helped me untangle each knot in my heart. She helped me understand that sometimes separation isn't the end of a love, but the beginning of a journey to find yourself again. Emma had enough courage to swim out of the old current, and you, Oliver, you need to have enough courage to let go and start your own journey, she said. Those words, though painful, were the first light in my dark tunnel. I realized that facing the truth, no matter how difficult, is still better than continuing to wallow in deceit and regret. I learned to face my emotions, no longer avoiding or burying myself in work. I started exercising, exploring the hiking trails around Seattle that Emma used to love. I no longer feared change, but began to embrace it as an inevitable part of life. I sought out new friends, people with shared interests, people I could share my thoughts and feelings with. I joined a guitar class not to please Emma, but to rediscover the joy in music, something I had long neglected. Gradually, I felt like I was the Oliver of old, but a more mature, stronger, and more authentic Oliver. I learned to forgive myself. Forgive the mistakes I had made, and learn to accept that not everything turns out the way you want. I understood that true maturity comes from daring to face the hidden corners of your own soul. The cost of my initial cowardice was a broken marriage, but the more expensive price was the regret when looking back at the time I had lost. I realized that the final secret of this story isn't about our divorce, but the profound lesson of maturity and courage. Maturity isn't about avoiding responsibility, but about bravely facing it even if it stems from a mistake. It's about recognizing your flaws, accepting them, and striving to become a better version of yourself for yourself. This path isn't easy, but it's the only one that leads to true peace. I had hit rock bottom of despair, but it was from there that I found the strength to stand up and move forward. Life after divorce wasn't a miracle that turned everything rosy overnight. It was a process. A difficult process full of long nights tossing and turning, thinking about what had happened, what could have been different. But it was also a process of healing, of growth, and of finding myself again. With each passing day, I felt like I was picking up the shattered pieces of myself and putting them back together into a new person, more resilient, more understanding, and most importantly, more authentic with myself. I continue my journey of rebuilding my life slowly, one step at a time. Therapy sessions remain an important part of this process. I'm no longer shy about talking about my fears, my mistakes. I understand that accepting flaws is the first step to overcoming them. The therapist helped me realize that the fear of change, the fear of leaving my comfort zone, was a major barrier preventing me from growing. When Emma wanted to swim out of the past, I stubbornly buried myself in it, and that's why we drifted further and further apart. Now I no longer run away. I still work as a freelance programmer, but with a completely different mindset. I no longer bury myself in work to fill a void, but to truly dedicate myself and develop. I seek out new projects, complex codes, new challenges that I would have avoided before. I learn new programming languages, take online courses, and expand my network. Work is now not just a source of income, but also a part of my journey of self-discovery and development. I learn to balance work and personal life, responsibility, and freedom. I spend time on hobbies I once neglected, not for anyone else, but for myself. I go hiking, explore national parks near Seattle that Emma used to love. I no longer fear change, but begin to embrace it as an inevitable part of life. I seek out new friends, people with shared interests, people I can share my thoughts and feelings with. I joined a guitar class not to please Emma, but to rediscover the joy in music, something I had long forgotten. Gradually, I felt like I was the Oliver of old, but a more mature, stronger, and more authentic Oliver. I learned to forgive myself, forgive the mistakes I had made, and learn to accept that not everything turns out the way I want. I understood that true growth comes from daring to face the hidden corners of your soul. I don't know where the future will take me. Maybe I'll find a new love, a woman who can accept the real me, accept both the scars and the lessons from the past, a love built on synchronicity, understanding, and respect for each other's individual aspirations. Or maybe I'll choose a single life dedicating all my time and love to myself and the passions I'm rediscovering. Either way, I know one thing for sure: I will never repeat my mistake again. I will never let fear dictate major life decisions. I will live true to myself, to the values I believe in, because I've learned that loving yourself, respecting your true self, is the foundation for all true love and happiness. I believe that when I live authentically, peace and happiness will find me. I still remember Emma's eyes, her radiant smile, and the burning dreams in those eyes. That's a beautiful memory, an indispensable part of my life. I no longer resent her, but only have respect and gratitude. She was brave enough to live her dream, and though unintentionally, she taught me a valuable lesson about growing up. She swam out of the old current, and now I too am learning to swim along, not to catch up to her, but to find my own path. My separation from Emma is a vivid testament to the fact that sometimes letting go is the best way to find liberation and allow both parties an opportunity to seek true happiness. No one is entirely at fault. We were just young people who took a hasty step and didn't grow together. But from that mistake, we learned the most valuable lesson about maturity and courage. I was reborn not from ashes, but from the very broken pieces of my life. The road ahead may still be challenging, but I believe in myself, and I believe in the power of authenticity, the power of synchronicity that I will seek in future relationships. If you are listening to this story, and you feel your partner is changing too fast while you are slowing down, or vice versa, you want to break free but are held back by some invisible thread. If you are standing at a major turning point in your life, a decision that could change everything simply because of fear and invisible pressure from society, from family, or from yourself, please just pause for a moment. Take a moment to listen to your inner voice, the voice of your heart and reason. Look straight at your partner. Bravely ask, are we truly still on the same path? Are your dreams still our dreams? Or are we slowly becoming two parallel lines even though we're still together? And most importantly, ask yourself the most crucial question, a question I wish I had asked myself sooner. Am I doing this out of genuine love and spiritual synchronicity, or out of fear, out of imposed responsibility, out of a desire to please others, or because I don't dare to face a difficult truth? Because marrying out of fear, committing out of unspoken responsibility, or out of haste is like building a house on sand. That house may look beautiful and strong on the outside. It may be praised by everyone, but its foundation is weak, easily collapsing in the storms of life. You may try to hold on, Try to play a role that isn't yours. Try to cover up the deep cracks within. But one day you will be exhausted and everything will shatter more painfully than you can imagine. We tried. We tried to make everything right. We tried to love. We tried to build. We tried to recover from a mistake. We didn't fail because we weren't good enough. We just started a journey, for the wrong reasons or with two vastly different goals. True love doesn't demand that you give up yourself. It doesn't force you to change your core nature to fit some mold. A happy marriage isn't built on lies or fear. It's built on authenticity, understanding, mutual respect, willingness, and a love strong enough to overcome all the difficulties and challenges life throws your way on the same path. Don't let fear steal your true happiness, steal your chance to be yourself. Be brave enough to face the truth. Be brave enough to speak what you truly want, because only when you live true to yourself can you find genuine peace and complete happiness, a lasting and authentic happiness. Choose to live true to yourself even if it means going against the crowd, because peace of mind is the most valuable thing. Don't bury yourself in the past. Learn to swim out just like Emma did. Thank you all so much for taking the time to listen to my story. I hope that these shared experiences, though perhaps painful, will bring some reflection, a little motivation for anyone standing at difficult crossroads in their own lives. Life is a continuous learning journey, and sometimes our biggest mistakes bring the most valuable lessons. If you found this story meaningful, if it touched your heart, or if you also have a similar story you'd like to share, don't hesitate to leave a comment down below. Every share, every word of encouragement is invaluable. Energy helping us feel less alone on our journey to find happiness and authenticity. We can learn from each other and grow together. Don't forget to share this video with anyone you think needs to hear it. Perhaps someone out there desperately needs this warning, needs a wake-up call to realize the value of living true to themselves before it's too late, before they lose their true self and genuine love. And if you want to support the channel, if you want to hear more emotional, meaningful stories and other life lessons, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support is a huge motivation for me to continue sharing authentic stories from life stories that can touch hearts and change lives. Thank you all very much.